Hi, I'm Caitlin King. I am a fisheries research biologist with the Department of Natural Resources in the Institute for Fisheries Research.
Hey, I'm Justin Schell. I'm a librarian at the University of Michigan Library, and I'm one of the people who worked on the Angling for Data on Michigan Fishes project.
Here at the Institute for Fisheries Research, we have a lot of historical data from lake surveys and fisheries surveys that were initially written on index cards and stored in folders in these filing cabinets behind us. And we needed to be able to use these data more readily, have them more easily accessible across the state. And so the goal was to digitize these records and get them into a format that could be used by anyone.
2020, we were shuffling scanners around the city to have students scan
In their homes.
thousands of these cards in their homes due to the onset of the pandemic. But we launched the project in 2021, working with Zooniverse volunteers around the world. We had more than 3,000 of them contribute more than 450,000 classifications. The level of engagement that we saw from people who also like to do other nature-oriented projects and also sort of historical transcription projects. It was amazing to see people work with us and all of the weird things we had to do to make these cards sort of be transcribable in a way that made it enjoyable for the volunteer and also gave us good data and folks like Caitlin could work with after the transcription project was complete.
Yeah, and some of the ongoing work right now is to match these cards and information on them to museum specimens. So you can look at changes in size over time, changes in body shape, what environmental factors might be causing those changes.
And in some of these, there are mentions of things like DDT in the 1950s. And so we can also see early sort of environmental movements and the reasons for those environmental movements in these cards as well.
So a lot of the research then can be used on which lakes might be the best lakes for focusing our efforts on conservation, restoration, and other management practices.
Without Zooniverse, this project wouldn't have been possible. We could not build an infrastructure to crowdsource this kind of work, but also the community engagement piece that allowed us to have conversations with our volunteers and also afterwards, to keep people informed about this, to connect with volunteers even a couple of years later after the project, the Zooniverse portion was finished, to have them be interviewed for a Detroit Free Press article.
We have actually already been able to use these data in some research that's already been published. So we were able to look at how largemouth bass abundance has changed over time, how bluegill growth has changed over time. These data have been really useful already, and we're going to continue to use them. We have a whole filing cabinet full of streams. Future goal would be to be able to do something similar with the stream data that we have across the state.
It's a cool thing to think about going back more than 100 years, since we have some cards going back to the 1880s, 1890s. I was out visiting Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park, struck up a conversation with a family at the visitor center, and she asked, where are you from? I said, Ann Arbor. And she said, my dad lived in Ann Arbor for a while. I'm like, what do you do? He was a fish biologist. I was like, what's his name? And of course, because I'm a nerd and I have the copy of the data at my laptop, I get his email address and I look back and find the 10 cards that he contributed to the project. We chatted a few times over email. He had no idea that his research that felt like such a sort of isolated point in time would be part of a Zooniverse project like this and could go on to contribute to all of these new scientific research, new scientific discoveries 60 years after he originally completed that work.